Yo, let me do the patch preview actually. Okay, let's quickly read this to see what they did overnight. ADCs, as mentioned yesterday, nerfs are coming into ADC laning and first item spike through early fleet nerfs. We're also reducing the power level of some ADC items that were released a bit too strong in the Season 2 changes. Season 2. Some tabs down to Kraken Shield as a result that give ADC champions a bit weaker from one item. We think Kraken being too strong is what's driving a lot of solo lane marksman meta right now. Yeah, this could be actually true. Kraken is probably a big reason why solo lane marksmen are pretty strong, and because most solo lane marksmen do use Kraken. For Varus, we're trying to put more power into Q-max builds over his W-max builds. Ezreal, we overshot a bit in recent patches and he's mostly unaffected by any item nerfs in the patch, so will be disproportionately buffed as a result, so we're tapping him down. Which makes sense, it's exactly what I said earlier, yesterday. AP items, we're bringing other AP items up to standard of other portion of the AP ecosystem. Items like Storm Surge were over-nerfed for range, and Void is still needing a little help. Cosmic and Rocket Belt have also struggled a bit to be performant for their core users. Shyvana is the main champion being nerfed for regular play this patch as she's overperforming. Leona is also one of the strongest supports right now by a pretty wide margin, so we're bringing her down a bit. Skarner, we over-nerfed Skarner in previous patch, we're restoring some of that power, we're also taking some of the lane-specific power in E-kidnapping units behind him in the cast that doesn't allow champions to play safely in the wave. We hope to strike the balance between lane and jungle Skarner. Returning skill skew to some champs. Over the years, we've made a bunch of adjustments to champions that make them more performant in normal play and reduce some of the optimization to make them stronger in higher level play. This has led to a gradual movement towards safe scaling champions in lanes, especially mid, and we're looking to recoup some of that. For assassins, we're trying to target them at having moments of shanked at 3, get all abilities, 6 ultimate and 9 first max, depending on the champion and whether their kit is conducive towards it and playing their moments of power. Aurelia, giving her a bit more power in all these situations, especially since she's usually close to full HP due to her healing. Yeah? What? Akali, we think it's pretty reasonable that in most cases Akali is trying to survive until 6 and play against the opponent's mana bar until she has skill threat. We're also buffing the ultimate here so that the buffs are skewed more towards mid lane and killing squishy champs rather than top, as she tends to have low interaction patterns. True. Yon giving a pretty meaningful Q-max buff. He's still meant to have a pretty weak early game, but once he gets Berserker and Q at higher ranks, he's going to represent a lot more threat than previously. Yon ult can get pretty low CD later in the games, and we're trying to bring it down to compensate for these buffs. You know what I kind of hate? Like, I kind of hate how laning phase or like early game, meaning of early game, can like be lost so fast, right? Like here he says he's still meant to have a pretty weak early game, but once he gets Berserkers and Q at higher level. Okay, so he has weak, let's say, for 6 levels of the game. He gets level 7 on Berserkers, he's no longer weak. So like, but to me, early game should be like usually first 40 minutes of the game, but like level 7 or like level 5 maybe with Berserkers is already pretty quickly into the game. Yasuo changes are targeted at increasing the efficiency of his rank 1 to increase his strat in lane. This is potentially a lot more damage when used well with his E-stack, so we'll be monitoring closely. For the Wind Brothers, we're also skewing a little longer because Fleet and Kraken are being nerfed and they often use them and we don't want to ride special them. Yeah, this is totally fair. Once again, I saw some Reddit complaints earlier in the morning that like Riot is nerfing X item because of Yasuo and Yon. It's not true. It's never nerfed because of Yasuo and Yon. Like, people need to stop thinking that because it's not true. Also, like, yeah, Yasuo is gonna be a really strong lane bully with these changes. Like, he's gonna be very early game scoot as a champ. Zed is receiving compensation nerf to his late game ultimate CD because it can get pretty low and not represent a meaningful window. However, he's receiving a pretty strong Q rank above that is meant to spike around the level 6 to 9 area. He should have wrote level 5 to 9 because that, yeah, but okay. Salas, in high levels of play, Salas tends to max Q as it's a bit more safe lane pattern, while in regular play he tends to max W as he doesn't get punished as hard. True. We're making Q max more and also we're making Q max up more and also increasing the uptime on Q cast as a result of wave pressure and trading potential. He's also building pretty squishy, which is quite telegraphed and one-dimensional play patterns, so we're adding some mixed durability profile back to him. Honestly, the whole text of these champs don't really say much. I mean, they just say like the basic things which make sense. But anyway, going over the change, so Varus is gonna get 280, so way stronger in lane bullying. W on hit damage goes actually down, so this is probably gonna kill W max first Varus, and Varus players are gonna probably go back to maxing Q first. Minion passive goes from 10 attack speed to 10 to 20 based on level 1 to 13. And champ takedown passive attack speed goes from 15 to 25. Champ takedown passive attack speed cap goes from 2.76 to 3. So okay, they're trying to make auto-attacking a little bit better via passive, 280 buff in lane, and a little bit of a worse W damage. Overall, like, you know, W damage is also losing 2 damage early, so this 280 buff doesn't really do much, honestly, looking at it. So honestly, like, truthfully, these Varus buffs don't even do much, honestly. I think these are very, very small. In general, I have a big problem with Varus being buffed because Varus top lane, I think, is a huge issue in high elo play. Yasuo E damage goes from 60 to 100 to 70 to 130. Now remember, this could mean that Yasuo might be maxing 3 points E into some matchups. Might be very good. E stack scaling also goes to 25%. So Yasuo E is getting absurd amount of damage. And this is going to be extremely noticeable if you manage to stack your E on minions before you use it on the champion. Yeah, this is very big buff. And I think Yasuo in most matchups with this change is also going to start E in level 1 in lane now. I think E level 1 is just really strong now as well. Base armor also goes up by 2. This does not make him a lot stronger into mages, but makes him even better against the current ADC meta that's happening in mid lane. So I think maybe one of the reasons why Riot is also buffing Yasuo is because they want to stop this ADC meta and they want to bring like a counter. And Yasuo is very good against ADCs. Yeah, big Yasuo buffs, honestly. This is one of the biggest Yasuo buffs that he's gotten in a while. And I honestly, yeah, I'm fine with it. Let's see how it plays out. Might be very strong. Talon, Q now always dashes towards his target, short range Q dashes less far. So every time they try to buff Talon, they classify Talon as a champion that's getting a buff, but in reality it's just a placebo change or like quality of life change. This is like the second time they did it now. I am not sure, yeah, this doesn't really do anything. I don't know, I guess it's quality of life, nice. Lona, passive damage goes from 32-168 to 32-151. So early game does not seem to be a big nerf, but more of a late game skewed nerf. And then W damage goes down by 20 at max rank. So honestly, the W nerf seems to be the big part here. The passive damage, I think, is not very important. Lona is picked more for the tankiness and utility more so than her damage. But yeah, her damage is more important in early game than it is in late game. That's just how supports are, right? Is this gonna kill Lona? Probably not, but for sure makes her a bit weaker, yeah. And yeah, this is probably spell she maxes first anyway, so yeah, 20 damage of W is a big deal, honestly. In this early game, all in some bot lane and whatever. Fair Lona nerf, I think. Definitely fair. I definitely think it's better to keep Lona's shanks be about tankiness and utility and be less about damage, so I kind of like the way they're nerfing her. Ezreal Q80 ratio goes down by 10%. This is a buff he received not too long ago, and honestly, I think Ezreal is still gonna be fine. Aurora doesn't say, Aurelion Sol doesn't say. So there are some nerfs on Reddit which I'll open right now. PB, let me just write it really fast. And then we'll talk about last 24 hours. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I opened it. So we'll talk about Aurora and Aesol in a second. Shyvana base E damage goes to goes from total AD to 50% bonus AD, so it's a nerf, and 10% less AP ratio as well. RE bonus damage goes, it's so hard to read, goes also 50% bonus AD instead of total AD and 10% less AP ratio as well. Also the E does more base damage, I've noticed. The base E will do more base damage, so it's like better for like tank Shyvana builds. So like top lane Shyvana, I guess it gets like an indirect buff maybe here. And then RE dot damage is also gonna go 120 bonus AD instead of 40 total AD and 80% AP. So it says here this is a 2% nerf, 3% nerf, 1% nerf. If you're building either Sojin or maybe AP Shyvana, this is probably the math around. It's like an approximate math. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Shyvana is just too good in like gold, silver. That's why she's getting nerfed. Skarner, 5 health growth, mana on Q goes to 5 down, so he's going to be last tier reliant, but he's probably still going to buy it, I guess. And then Q, quality of life around attack after casting, okay, I don't know what that means. And then E can no longer like 360 no scope you. So Skarner is going to be better, especially for like lower elos of play, because this E interaction is probably only like really optimized by like high elo players. But overall, Skarner is still probably going to be stronger as a champion, but I don't think he's really making a comeback in high elo. I think he's still kind of bad. Cassiopeia gets a bunch of mana, so 50 more base mana level 1 and gets a little bit less per level, but The Q mana goes down by 20 at max rank on Q, and then E is flat 40, and then W is also down by 20 at max rank. So this is going to be huge mana changes for Cassiopeia. It's going to make it so she probably starts Doran's Ring instead of Tear as well, because Doran's Ring is going to make her a lot better in lane, and because now she has a lot more mana to work with in lane, she's going to be a better lane bully. As a compensation, she's getting some scaling nerfs on Q AP ratio down by 0.2, and E also bonus damage AP ratio by 0.5. I still think these are probably buffs for Cassiopeia, as it makes her a lot better in early and mid game, and this is where she kind of needs to get a lead to get going as a champion. She has like extra slots in late game as a champion anyway via having no boots, and because boots nerfs are also coming in, Cassiopeia also gets an indirect buff there, and I think Cassiopeia is going to be probably buffed here. Yeah, not much to say. Aurelia gets 40 HP, and as a compensation nerf gets 2.5 less health regen. So this is just a straight buff to the champion. This is going to make her really tanky level 1. With Doran's Blade starts, it's going to make her so stat check in the first 5 levels of the lane. I am genuinely really scared for this buff. I think this is one of the largest buffs Aurelia has gotten. I'm really surprised how it is going for 40 HP. Like usually they go for 30 HP on champs, but 40 is really big. It's gonna legit make her a tank level 1. She's gonna walk into lane with like 750 HP. This is gonna be insane. Akali R1 damage goes up 30 early and 30 late down. R2 damage goes up 10 early and late. R cooldown goes up 20 by early, which means that if she fucks up her first ultimate at level 6, she's going to be much weaker because her ult is going to be longer in cooldown. And then W cooldown 20 to 16, so a little bit of a late game buff. Overall, I would say just better early game for Akali, especially level 6 to 11, and then it becomes gradually even worse than before. I think this is good for Akali because she should kind of be an early game centric champ. And another thing is like Ultimate Hunter, I guess, becomes a little bit better, right? With Ultimate having a little bit more cooldown. That's about it. So I guess Electrocute indirectly, like Electrocute room page is indirectly buffed on her. Yon gets 20 more damage base on Q and 20 less ult cooldown on max rank. Huge Yon buff. This is just a huge buff. Zed gets 20 more damage on Q, which is an insane buff, like an insane buff. This ability is so spammable. It's his main trading tool. Level 9 is really fast into the game. First max, absolutely huge. As compensation nerf, it's 10% less bonus AD ratio. So once he gets to 200 AD and more, his ability is gonna start doing less damage. So again, better early game, worse late. Although I still think this is buff to the champion. No matter how you read it, you for sure would rather have a buff than a nerf here. R cooldown 120 to 80 to 120 to 100. So this is another late game nerf to Zed. So at level 16, yes, he's gonna be weaker. That's about it. Sylas Q cooldown 11 to 7 to 10 to 6. So it's getting 1 second off Q. Q2 damage goes 60 to 280 and 10% AP ratio. So honestly, this is not that big of a nerf, and a cooldown being less, I honestly think the ability is going to be totally fine, and I honestly think the ability might even be better than before. I'm not even kidding, because 1 second cooldown might actually be better than these nerfs. Sylas is still going to want to Q max in majority of matchups, maybe now even more than before. E to AP ratio though gets a big hit, 20% less, and then W AP ratio also gets a hit, but they're making it so he scales with bonus HP in builds, and this patch they're also buffing HP on Cosmic Drive and Hectic Rock Belt, so if he buys any of those items, he's getting, you know, the bonus HP there. Yeah, so honestly, I think Sylas will want to buy an HP item in this patch, and then W AP ratio goes down. So okay, damage-wise, Sylas is for sure going to be weaker. Overall, the champion, I would assume, is going to be a little bit weaker for sure, even with all these item buffs coming in. But yeah, that's about it. System buffs. Dark Harvest, Sylas is still going to be playable, basically. Dark Harvest is going to get 5 less cooldown on... Yeah, on Dark Harvest, and takedown reset is going to be 1 second instead of 1.5. So double buff for Dark Harvest, and yeah, a bit better especially for laners, because cooldown buffs are better for laners. Cosmic Drive, 100 more HP, and...
So is Sylas gonna go more of a bruiser style build
Yes,
now?
he will. He will probably want to buy Rocket Build first and Lichbane second, I would assume. Or he's gonna want to buy Lichbane first and Cosmic Drive second. I think that's gonna be the Sylas build. Cosmic Drive 25 to 60 to 40 to 60, scaling linearly, so this is a buff at all levels for the Moose Pit, so indirect Syndra buff. Hectic Rock Belt 100 more HP. So again, yeah, these are Hectic Rock Belt being buffed is very good for Galio. Galio really likes Hectic Rock Belt or Cosmic Drive in builds, and Vladimir also really likes Cosmic Drive. So this is also a Vladimir indirect buff. Storm Surge, items to the trash. Don't care how much you buff it. Don't build it. Void Staff 5 more AP. Still worse than Creep Bloom in majority of cases. However, this is nice for champions that don't really want Creep Bloom and they can go Void Staff in those specific cases. Death Dance, 10 more armor, item is to trash, doesn't matter really. But you can maybe buy it on champs like Riven in some cases or whatever, like champs like that. And then here we have really huge changes, so this is gonna really hit Marksman solo lane a little bit. So Kraken Slayer gets a big nerf, pretty good nerf. 2%, so okay, this is one of the happiest things that ever happened. Yesterday I said that no move speed item should give more than 5%, besides some exceptions like Phantom Dancer. Thank God they're making this through. This is exactly the change I suggested they should do, and they're doing it. Good job. Move speed down on both items of Static and Kraken. Thank you. There's so much move speed in the game. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then the passive of Kraken is going to be now 80% effective on range champions. This is a huge nerf, and so many champs are going to be affected by this. Quinn, Twisted Fate, Lucian, Soul Lane, every ADC that buys Kraken, like Kai'Sa, Jinx. Yeah, a lot of ADCs are going to be really affected by this. Tristana, another nerf for her. Static Shoe, also 2% move speed down and 100 more gold. The reality is that the Kraken nerf is for sure bigger than the Static Shoe nerf, but both items are nerfed. So, for example, something like Zari, who usually buys Static Shoe, is a little bit more happier because the nerf is not as severe on Static Shoe as it is on Kraken. Lord Dominix is losing 5% armor pen. Thank you, Riot. These are really, really good steps into the right direction. This is really going to kill triple ADC team comps because now armor stacking is going to become a lot better as well. Thank you so much, Riot. This is really, really, really big. I literally said the other day that I think ADC soul lane meta is going to keep staying until Riot nerfs either Infinity or LDR, and finally we got a nerf. Mortal Reminder is also losing 5 AD. I'm personally not a big fan of nerfing a Mortal Reminder, as I think the item is never as good as Lord Dominix in most cases, but whatever, okay, whatever. I mean, obviously, LDR is still an amazing item, by the way, you're still gonna buy it, right? And then Fleet is gonna basically get the same nerf Absorb Life got nerfed, right? Which is basically, Fleet is gonna be way worse level 1 to 14. It's gonna like Absorb Life, and I really do think this is gonna impact a lot in lane for the rune. Yeah, a lot less healing. I think a lot of champions by default are gonna swap to PTA after this nerf, for sure. Like a champ like Auction, for example. I really think Auction is gonna probably just swap to PTA and no longer play Fleet. But I guess we'll see. Yeah. Okay, so we got some mage buffs here. Certain champs and mages are getting buffed. We got some ADC nerfs in the patch, which is a good thing because the role is way too OP. And we got some individual champ buffs and nerfs. And we got some champ adjustments here. Looking like an okay patch. Would like more changes, but yeah. And then I guess we can also read the Aurelion Sol and Aurora really fast. What's on PBE? So, ASOL damage per second AP scaling from Q goes down by 5%. Burst damage is going to go base 55.95 to 55.75. Huge nerf on ASOL Q damage. AP scaling down by 5% here as well. Now also scales with 12% Stardust, so I'm not really sure how much this matters and how much like stacks you need to really like make this ability be better with Stardust. I don't really get the math here. Target HP scaling goes down from 3.1 to 3%, so that's a little bit of a Stardust nerf, I guess. And then E cost is gonna go up by 10, so a little bit more mana issue on ASOL. If he goes the Blackfire Torch build that I'm trying right now, this doesn't really matter. Grants 1 extra stack of Stardust if at least 4 enemies die within it. So that's really huge. That's really huge, and this is going to be highly skewed change because highly skewed players are better at stacking and they're going to get like 4 minions in the same E rotation up a lot more. And that's a really good buff to me, actually, because this is going to give me like 20 more stacks per game, pretty much. This change is going to literally give me 20 more stacks per game, on average, maybe more. That's really good for me. Maybe even more. And Aurora, I don't know, apparently there's a newer change, so I don't know if this goes through, but basically they're looking to nerf her passive bonus move speed to be worse early game, better late, I guess. And they're looking to nerf her R base damage and AP scaling. So the R is for sure gonna get nerfed, which is a good thing. Aurora R is way too stupid. It's just point and click, Hui ult that does more damage. That's instantaneous. And it gives her like the mobility as well. And it's AoE, so it hits like multiple people by default. Yeah, it's good that they're nerfing the ult. I would really like them to buff passive damage. I think passive does a really shit damage on Aurora, and that's about it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all the changes.